Hi, how you doing? Fred here. So I want to talk today about something that I think it's a difficult conversation to have, but at the same time, it's an important conversation to have. You know, for a long time, there was like this, a movement kind of a situation. What would Jesus do? And it's became kind of a joke. A lot of other people started using what would Jesus do, and they'd have like, what would Joe do, and then they just started making fun of it. But maybe we're not supposed to be so flippant about the idea of what would Jesus do. But I think the complicated thing in the situation is to know that what did Jesus do, and how did Jesus um, walk this earth, and what attitudes did he have? What processes did he take? How did he walk in his ministry? If we're supposed to be, um, disciplined followers of Jesus, that's what a disciple is, a disciplined follower of Jesus, somebody who wants to follow after what Jesus did and act as Jesus told us to act and believe and how Jesus told us to believe and to do what Jesus was telling us to do. So then we should know, what did Jesus do? It's, I said at the beginning, it's a hard message only because I can't necessarily always expect us to walk exactly the way Jesus would walk and do exactly the way Jesus would. We can't possibly, because we are not Jesus. We did not have, yes, he was born of a woman, but his father was God. And although he was a man and he walked in his manhood through this world, he also had a born again spirit before anybody else did. He had a knowledge of God that was different than the knowledge that we have. Now, the process that is put in place for us to accept Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior and to walk away from thoughts and understandings and our attitudes and our thought process. It says in the Bible, the battlefield is here. Well, why is the battlefield here? Because we are the ones who put most of the limitations on ourselves and on other people through our beliefs and our understandings. That's how it works. That's how we walk through this life. We control ourselves with our thoughts. And once we learned that we were being controlled by other thoughts that we no longer find valid, we learn to have new thoughts, and we think differently and we walk differently. Uh, I don't believe that Jesus really had that as a struggle as much. He probably still had some, but I think he didn't have it as much. Because one of the things that Jesus said is that he's never said anything that he hasn't seen the Father say or heard the Father say. And he never did anything he didn't see the Father do. So if that's the case, well then, through his whole life, he was able to understand what the Father was saying and doing, and never to step outside of that. We don't walk like that. We should walk like that. We really need to be walking like that. And the more we walk like that, the better off we'll be. But we don't walk like that. We try. I try to shut down the preconceived understandings that I have in my brain that this is the way something happens because it's the way it's always happened. And that's not necessarily the truth. I can't say that 100% that I yield to what Jesus would have me do, because I don't. And I cannot. I want to get to the point where I can do better and better and better in that area. That's for sure. just I'm recording this on Monday. Normally I have it done before Monday, and I upload it on Monday and get it ready to go. But today I'm recording this on Monday. Yesterday I preached. Well, I didn't really preach. I had a little moment of ministry in between preaching. But I had a vision, and I talked about it when I was at the church. And so the vision I had was God, Jesus, doing CPR on his people. And he was breathing his breath into our lungs. And he was using his hands to pump our hearts. And I think that's really, really, really where we need to be as much as we possibly can. Understanding that we can't breathe, our heart can't pump, our minds can't work without God working them. God gives us all our breath. God gives us the way we think. God gives us our heart pumping. They're all gifts from God. And we cannot survive without his gifts. We cannot. You take away oxygen, we don't live very long. You stop the heart from pumping, we don't live very long. So there is a factor that, we need to get to that point of recognizing and understanding that we are nothing without the presence of God in our life. And there's a lot of people who don't even realize or recognize or are willing to realize or recognize that your heart beating in your chest is because of God. The air that you breathe is because of God. The water you drink is because of God. The food you eat is because of God. Nothing exists anywhere, in any place, at any time, for any reason other than God. That's it. A lot of people choose not to believe that. And to their peril, because there's a lot you can learn when you dig into God and you get a relationship with God and you get time to be still and be sitting in his presence and asking him, Lord, what do I do in this situation? What do I do in that situation? And you get to feel his presence and you get to interact with him in a way where he speaks to your heart. He speaks through your conscience. He tells you what you need to do. He shows you the way, the truth, and the life. What would Jesus do? Only what his Father in heaven was telling him to do. What would he say? Only the things that his Father in heaven would tell him to say. And you might be going, well, how in the heck is that possible? We act with more emotion and more randomness than we're supposed to. Nothing wrong with feelings and emotions. There's nothing wrong with them whatsoever. But when you allow them to rule you, like somebody said today that I heard, who and what are you going to bend your knee to? We all bend our knee to something. Some of us bend our knee to pornography. Some people bend their knee to money. Some people bend their knee to fame, fortune, all kinds of stuff. Some people bend their knee to food. Take my word for it. Some people do that. Some people do that. My goal in my life is to bend my knee to God and only God. Only God. Why? Because my allegiance is not something that anybody, anything, any stuff is worthy of. Only God is worthy. Only God is worthy. Now I'm telling you, I will have to get up off of my knee from time to time and repent for bowing down to gluttony, lust, the god of money, all kinds of things. But I know, and this is the big key for most people, which would give you freedom. I know that I do it. And I know that I'm willing to change from doing it. And I know that I want to change from doing it. So, what do? You recognize and realize that you have patterns of behavior that are based up in here that you need to learn and see and be aware of. And the Bible calls it shining the light on it, because in the darkness it wants to be hidden. It wants to just do what it does. It doesn't want you to be aware that you're taking actions that are causing you problems without you even knowing it. Rather that you stay unconscious to that. I remember long for a while people were talking about meditation. No, not meditation, sorry, hypnotism, and how you can stop smoking with hypnotism, and you can do a bunch of things with hypnotism. And when I started looking into it and figuring out, I'm like, wow, it's interesting, And then one day I was asking God about it. It's like, the Lord, what is this? Because obviously he seems to do something. He says, you got it all messed up. You got it all mixed up. I'm like, I do. He says, oh yeah. You're not hypnotizing yourself in order to change something. You're stopping the hypnotism that has already been put in place. If you were truly not hypnotized, you would walk in freedom. But because you're hypnotized to believing you should think a certain way, you just do it without even thinking. Because you believe that you can't quit smoking, you just don't do it because you believe you're hypnotized. The reality is you can quit anytime you want to, but you've hypnotized yourself and you believed the stories that it's not possible. It's very difficult. It's very hard. Most people can't do it. There's a bunch of things that are used. Marketing uses it all the time. That's how you market. You convince somebody that what you're saying is true, and they start to believe it, and then they start running in it. The ironic thing is that hypnotism in marketing, it can be so powerful that you can literally, on the thing that you are selling, say how dangerous the thing is that you're now consuming, and it is completely ignored by the people holding the thing, because the marketing hypnotism about taking that product out and smoking it is so much more powerful than even the visual image on the box showing you how dangerous it is. That's not for me. That's somebody else. Completely and utterly hypnotized. So when God showed that to me, it's like we are all hypnotized. We all walk in these messages that people have placed in our subconscious that we don't even recognize they're there. And to truly change the things, we need to de-hypnotize ourselves. So we don't just walk blindly down the road. We know why we're walking down the road. And maybe turn around and walk back the other way. So what would Jesus do? Jesus would not walk through this earth hypnotized. He knew exactly what his calling was to do. He knew the suffering that he was going to have to go through for you and for me. He knew that he was going to have to hang on a cross after being beaten, disrespected, tortured, disregarded, and even the worst worst part about what happened to Jesus on the cross is that his Father had to turn his back on him. He had to. He had to put all the sins of the world on Jesus. And because God is holy, he cannot be in the presence of sin. So once all the sin of the world was placed on his back, God the Father could not be in Jesus' presence. So then that's when Jesus said, Father, Father, why have you forsaken me? We don't even know what it's like to actually walk with God on a regular basis, but he did. He never had a moment in his life where he did not hear and feel the presence of God. This is the part of heaven that we get to enjoy when we go. And even when we're here, we spend time in the presence of God, and you feel that love and compassion and caring. Yeah. Anyways, what would Jesus do? Such a funny thing to say, because people make fun of it. Even some songs like, that Jesus take the wheel. Like, people made fun of that. Oh yeah, Jesus is going to take the wheel. Yeah. Listen, if God doesn't take the wheel in your life, we will run off a cliff. We do not understand how manipulated we are, how programmed we are, how hypnotized we are. We literally have to wake up, look around and go, what am I doing here? That's all I have to say about that. What would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? Only what the Father tells him to do. Only what he's seen the Father do. I want to get there. I really want to get there. I want to be at a place where I don't do anything out of my own will. I do all the things that I do because I understand this is what God would want me to do and how he would want me to do it. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be, Frederick, this is God. This is what you do. It's like I've gotten to know the nature of God through his word, through spending time with him in his presence, how he interacts with other people. So I know his nature. I know what he would do. It's like, just imagine. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. But just imagine in your relationships, in your marriage, in your friendships, in your relationships, if you only said things to people that you knew that only God would say, and you wouldn't. So let's just say, for example, a person says something nasty to you. What would Jesus say? Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. I'm not saying you say that to the person, but in your heart you go, perhaps they didn't intend for it to have that kind of impact. So I will not allow that to affect me. And then you can look at that person and in your heart know that it's not their intention to hurt you. Maybe it is, but it's not. So I'll forgive that. No big deal. The reality is, it's tough for us to do that because you're in a relationship with somebody and somebody says something, it triggers all kinds of stuff. And then all kinds of emotions pop up, all kinds of insecurities pop up, all kinds of other things pop up. Why? And afterwards you're like, wow, Lord, why did I say that? Why did I act that way? Why did I do that? That's not my heart. I don't want to do that. I don't want to act that way. I don't want to say those things. And God said, yeah, I know. Yeah, I forgive you. But, did you go into the battlefield? Have you looked to see why? How are you hypnotized to believe that action is sufficient in the moment? What triggers are popping up inside of you that you feel like you have to defend yourself? You feel like you're being disrespected. You feel, and then trigger, and then now bleh, you gotta throw up all over them with all your gross, self-indulged insecurities. And then they throw up all over you, and then it's just a big mess. The reality is, you're hypnotized, you're programmed. And you need to go into a deep, quiet place with God and say, Lord, show me. Show me why I think the way I think. And He'll show you. But just better, even better than that, Lord, I don't care how I thought. I don't care how I felt. I don't care. What should I do? What should I feel? You show me, Lord. You show me how I should act. Well, Lord, what do you mean a wise man stays silent while a fool speaks? You mean when somebody does something that is hurtful, say nothing? But doesn't that person need to know what they said was hurtful? What is the sin that came into the world when Adam and Eve ate from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Judgment. We should yield to the Spirit of God and have that as being the judge. There's a bunch of scriptures and a bunch of people saying, well, the scriptures say you need to judge the Spirit. Yes. Does that mean you're judging people? No, you're judging the Spirit, which means you are in tune to the Spirit of God and you're discerning if it's God or if it's something else. It doesn't actually mean to judge people because you're judging the Spirit. Judge your own actions. Take that plank, that plywood, that forest out of your eye before you so focus on the fleck in somebody else's. Oh, Lord, what do you mean by that? Judge this. Judge yourself. Judge your actions. Judge your motivations. Judge your responsibility. Let them judge themselves with God. You set yourself free. So when they say that stuff to you, it doesn't affect you. You can still love them even though they said something to you. I'm not saying take abuse. I'm saying just you get to a place when you could sit back and just be aware of what's happening and recognize and realize and maybe understand that maybe that's not the right place for you to be. but you're not reactionary. You're proactionary. You are in a place with God and you're walking in that peace. So you don't react. You understand. People are hurt. Hurt people hurt people. You work on you. Set yourself free so you don't have those reactions. You don't feel insecure anymore. You don't feel less than. You don't feel that you're not as pretty as the other girl, or you're not as masculine as the other guy. You're not as handsome. You're not as young. You're not as whatever you might have in your heart about them being better than you or you being insufficient to everybody. Get rid of that stuff because that's not going to benefit you at all. It's just going to put you in a place where you are reaction and not just peaceful. Well, that's all I have to say about that. Well, I said that before, so I might say more about it afterwards, but not right now. I love you. I really do love you. I 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 really hope that you're doing okay. And I feel sad if you're not. I'd love to give you a hug. Say everything's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Trust God. Spend time with God. Be still. Know that He is God. Read His Word. He wants to support you in His Word. He wants to love you. He wants a relationship with you. If you are breathing air right now, you have a special place in His heart. And He wants to have a relationship with you. He needs a relationship with you. You are called to be something important. I love you. Be blessed. See you soon. Okay, bye-bye.